That's cool.
Yeah, that was me in the intro. Shooting a Turkish shotgun. Well, started with shooting a Turkish shotgun. Now I have this Turkish shotgun sitting here right next to me. So we're going to talk about this one today. This is the MAC 1014. Let's roll the intro.
Nice. You hit me in the nuts.
Welcome back to Sight Picture 762. I'm your host, Joe. Today we're going to be talking about the MAC 1014, like I said in the intro there. This is a nice little Turkish shotgun, something that I'm sure everyone's heard the term Turkish shotgun or heard about Turkish shotguns in the gun world. They kind of flooded the market a few years ago. So a lot of people have good experience. Let's be honest, a lot more people have more negative experience than they do positive experience. Not trying to knock them in particular. It's just there was a flood of them on the market. And, so a lot of people wonder, are these things any good? Are they any bad? Are they worth the $200 price tag in some cases? Because you do see some at $200 or less. Not this one in particular. This one's a little more than $200, but still a very affordable model. So are they any good at all? I had always said I was never going to really pick up a Turkish shotgun. Well, I really shouldn't say I said I was never going to pick up a Turkish shotgun. I was really not going to pick up one of the generic semi-autos. There was a flood of semi-autos. You've seen them. I've seen them. If you walked into a gun store in the past 5 years, it's flooded. I'm sure you've gotten emails flooding with Turkish shotguns. So anyways, I really never thought I was going to venture into the semi-auto Turkish shotgun world till the Benelli M4 patents ran out. That ran out a couple years ago. So a couple companies from Turkey, surprise, surprise, started making the shotguns. They started making a couple clones. The first one that I can remember in particular was the Radical that was put out by SDS Imports. This one's also imported by SDS Imports. It's imported. The company is Military Armament Corporation, but they're under SDS Imports. Regardless, same gun, basic gun, different factory, same importer. Kind of a weird Turkish dilemma with shotguns, I guess. So kind of what I'm joking at here by saying like the Turkish dilemma when it comes to the shotguns is there's just a plethora of them out there, and the M4 clones are no exception. Radical, that was the first one that I remember on the scene, like I had mentioned at first. That was the one I shot in the intro. First one I handled in general. A customer came into the gun store I used to work at years ago, brought one in. I looked it over. I thought it was pretty cool. The only thing that bothered me with the Radical and the first ones I had seen was they all had like this generic Turkish stock. Like you can kind of, I'll get a closer shot of this a little bit later on. But they all had this generic look to them. They kind of had like this, I don't know, like this indentation right here. It was kind of like a cheek rest. It looked very cheap and chintzy, and I always hated the way it looked. But other than that, I was pretty impressed with it. It looked nice. The overall fit and finish seemed, for the money, wasn't bad. Again, for the money. You're not going to get the same quality as you would out of an actual Benelli M4. If that's what you're going for when you purchase one of these, I think you're fooling yourself. I'm not saying that these aren't quality or they can't be good shotguns by any stretch of the imagination. It's pretty apparent when you pay $400 for something versus paying something for $2,000. Yeah, you can say your ARs are all the same or lowers are all the same. QC, I think, is pretty varied across the board. I'm not saying this one's a bad quality. I'll get into that in a second. But that being said, you don't have the same quality standards in a lot of the Turkish shotgun factories as you do in a company like Benelli. Just plain and simple. So that being said, talk about the generic overview of Turkish shotguns and my kind of thoughts on them aside, let's talk about this one, the MAC 1014.
Alrighty, first shots with the Turknelli. That's just fun.
So I ended up buying the shotgun. Then I wanted to, put it through a little more tests, see a couple more, how it's going to do. I read the manual really quick. They basically said the first 100 rounds is going to be your break-in period. Don't run anything below 1350 FPS in the first 100 rounds. You will get misfeeds or miss cycles. One of the boxes I had thrown in the first 105 rounds I had fired was 1325 FPS, but it cycled it. So, first 100 rounds, everything ran fine. No issues. I fired a plethora of ammunition. Various buckshot, like I said, ranging, it was all above 1350 FPS with the exception of the one box, which I believe was 1325. Fired about 25 rounds of federal steel shot. That ran, no problem as well. I think that was, I'm trying to remember what the FPS was. I think it was about like 1650 FPS, something along those lines. Fired some slugs too. Slugs ran fine. So the first 100 rounds, the break-in period, no issues. I had not a single malfunction. Nothing went wrong with it. So I was pretty happy with it. I'll say my first 100 rounds, no problem. 102nd round, there was an issue. Just a misfeed, a failure to eject. It was on one of the slugs. The ammunition was Herters. It was one of their, the Cabela's brand, or I guess Bass Pro Shop, whatever you want to call it now. One of their brand of 12 gauge slugs. Could have been the ammo. Could have been the gun. Could have been either or. I really can't say. I feel like the slugs, it should have cycled the slugs no problem, which leads me to believe it was probably more of an ammunition issue. But again, just because slugs being higher FPS, I don't see why it shouldn't have cycled that. So,
see how this patterns.
I was pretty happy with those results. I haven't tried any of the lower FPS stuff yet, like the clay shot or bird shot. I haven't really messed with that aside from the steel shot I had. So after I put some more rounds through that, I will kind of review it. I figured for the break-in period, I wanted to give it the best chance of survival it had, which was, per the manual, run buckshot anything 1350 FPS or higher. So I tried to do that the first 100 rounds, and it worked. So for the break-in period, it did what it was supposed to. I can't complain. So that being said, let me show you some more footage of me shooting a couple different rounds through it.
She runs.
Uh-huh.
See how this runs with slugs. Runs.
All right, so next from the ammunition, something I like to talk about, wanted to talk about, I should say, was the charging handle. The charging handle that came with it is serviceable. It's nothing crazy. It's the first thing I had actually kind of swapped out outside of adding a sling. I added the Midwest Industries charging handle instead. I just felt a little more comfortable with it. But the one you get out of the box, it's perfectly fine if you just want to have something simple to go to the range with, shoot, do nothing crazy with. The stock, this is something, like I mentioned earlier, I believe I mentioned earlier on the Radical SAX, they had that generic kind of Turkish stock. This one does have a similar generic Turkish stock, which, something cool about this, the MAC 1014 in particular, is they offer it in a plethora of different models. You can either get it this way with the fixed stock. They also make what they call like a breacher style stock, which kind of looks like a tactical collapsible stock, but it's fixed. It's just meant to retain that look. Just kind of give you that cool look for the import, have that on there, and staying with that compliancy bullcrap. Speaking of compliancy bullcrap, they actually do make some state compliant models too. And I say that like it's almost a bad thing, and I really shouldn't, because if we can arm the people behind enemy lines, you know what I mean, in terms of communist states with restrictions, more power to you. I'd like to, see more people shooting than less people shooting, even if you are in a banned state like, like New Jersey or North Korea, or what's the difference? So the banned state models, something I did want to address with these. I think they actually do offer a couple versions that are pretty neat, and I would consider purchasing myself. There's basically the same gun with a straight stock. So you just lose the pistol grip feature. So they offer you a couple different pistol grips, with the stock options, and then they offer a couple different versions without the pistol grip. So you can own it in basically any state. I don't think there's any state they're really restricted in with semi-automatic shotguns in this flavor. Correct me if I'm wrong. California and New York are changing every day, so maybe you can't. But to my knowledge, for banned state models, they do offer for most states that have semi-automatic restrictions. And like I said, the one with the straight stock in particular, with the wood stock, I think that's pretty nice, to be honest. If I wasn't already going to switch out this stock for something else, I'd probably get a set of the wood furniture. It looks really nice on these. Like I had mentioned earlier, I'd added a sling onto here, onto the shotgun, I should say. And the only thing about adding the sling is the sling mount that's on the rear of the stock here. It's not, at least mine was not cut properly. It wasn't a length for, it's a Blue Force gear sling I have on here. It wouldn't actually go through properly. We actually had to cut the sling and kind of adjust it to get it to go through. Not a big deal, but just watch. If you have certain slings, you might have to modify them a little bit to get them to work if you want to use that original stock, or if you have the other style, or just get a different stock with a QD slot and add your own. That's not an issue. Something I figured is worth noting. All right, so the finish might not be on par with the Benelli finish, but the one thing this is on par with, I guess, in terms of the Benelli is compatibility. The MAC 1014, in my research, everything I've seen and looking at aftermarket parts, stocks, charging handles, the extended round tube, side saddles, you name it, everything is compatible with the original parts, or all the original parts, I should say, are compatible with the MAC 1014. So if you want to add $500 worth of parts, $10,000 worth of parts, I don't know why you would, but go ahead and add $10,000 worth of Benelli parts on here. Have at it. You can do it with this one. With everything I talked about with the MAC 1014, what are my overall thoughts? You know, do I think it's something you should go out and buy? Let's look at it. Like all the reasons I had mentioned, you know, it's pretty reliable for, 105 rounds in, one failure. The parts compatibility with M4, you have a large aftermarket. You know, the charging handles, they work. It's the aftermarket's just great with it. It's not Glock's aftermarket, but you do have an aftermarket there. And the biggest thing about this is it's $400. They're around $400. I've seen a couple go a little above that price tag, a little under, depending on where you get it. Keep in mind, if you buy something online too, if you buy a firearm online and you think you're getting a really good deal and you see this guy, let's say you see it for $350, keep in mind, you got to pay shipping, you got to pay transfer, and you got to get, you have to pay taxes on top of that. So you'll probably end up paying about $400 in the long run. So for $400, I say, yeah, this is a definite buy so far. Granted, I'm only 100 rounds into the shotgun. I will report back on after I've fired more. I hope to fire about 500 to 1,000 rounds through it in the near future. Again, it takes a little bit of time and money. And yeah, so I really enjoy the MAC 1014. It's definitely a shotgun I'm very happy I purchased. I guess something I should have mentioned at the beginning of this video too is it's actually the only shotgun I own right now in my collection. I used to own an 1897 clone years ago that I got rid of, but I've never really been into shotguns. They've just never been my thing. I've always been more into the military rifles, and shotguns always just never really did it for me. Until this one. So the MAC 1014, thank you for changing my opinion on shotguns and I guess Turkish shotguns in general. You know, some things you really have to take a look at and see what people are saying about them. Because, yeah, the MAC 1014, mine so far, it's great. Someone else, they might have gotten another Turkish shotgun that it sucks. It doesn't work. It's just not running right. I can't attest to those. I can just only attest to mine. And, yeah, it's great. I love it so far. I did actually recently purchase another stock for it. I am going to swap out. You'll see that in a follow-up. I would like to, show you guys that at some point. Like I said, I replaced the charging handle when they become more available. I do want to get the tube on that to get the extra 2 rounds in there. But I want to get the Military Armament Corporation or the SDS imports. I'd rather get the company that makes it. I just kind of just want to see all their stuff on there. Outside of the charging handle, I kind of saw the Midwest Industries and kind of jumped on it as the price was on sale. And yeah, I figured why not. I'll end with this. Remember, You'd rather be caught with a Turkish shotgun than you would be getting caught in a Turkish bathhouse. See you next time.